Hey guys, Drifter here. I've been having a ton of fun with Zombies Royale in the Haunting in Verdansk event because this mode makes me feel like I'm in a scary movie. This mode has really big, really crazy, really hype moments, and the base gameplay and mechanics around it are quite good too. But sometimes I'm feeling like I'm in a scary movie not because there's zombies everywhere, but because there's really clever horror movie references hidden all over the map. Today I'm going to be showing you a few of them, and this is nothing new for Infinity Ward. As a matter of fact, they've been doing this since the Michael Myers map in Call of Duty Ghosts, and I have a video breakdown of that map, a link down there below, and an extraordinarily detailed breakdown of the beginning of Infinite Warfare's Zombies, which was also chock full of horror movie references. So I was not surprised that they put some well-known and lesser-known scary movie references in this game, and it's been super fun. So today I'm going to show you where everything came from. First up is the obvious two. You have Billy the Doll from the Saw movies. Now, Billy the Doll doesn't really kill anything or do anything in the Saw movies, but he is kind of the face of the franchise. You also have Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which we watched recently on Twitch during a watch party, and his chainsaw weapon, and he is extremely accurately recreated to the first film, including if you look at the weapons and items that come with his pack, not just the cute chainsaw gun, but the meat grinder hammer is identical to what it was during that horrific jump scare in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1, if you know what I'm talking about. It's like one of the top 10 jump scares in cinematic history. Matter of fact, it pioneered the out-of-nowhere jump scare. Number 2 today is the ghost trains located in the Verdansk subway. So if you go to the subway system, you will see ghost trains flying by. They don't hurt you, they pass right through you, and they move with an incredible amount of speed. They're moving through really frequently as well. They're a little bit hard to film because they move so fast, but in a moment I'm going to slow it down so you can see it in slow motion. But both the speed and the frequency and the lack of lethality are all a reference to the movie that this came from, which is surprisingly a PG-rated comedy, Ghostbusters 2. Near the beginning of the movie, the Ghostbusters go investigate the subway system in New York City, and Winston Zeddemore accidentally gets hit or gets passed through by a ghost train and almost dies. It's one of the scary, or he thinks he's going to die. It's one of the scarier parts of the movie just because you think the main character is going to die. Number 3 is the other ghost train that's located in the quarry. Now this is footage from J-Hub and Niku because my train glitched out and never loaded, but this ghost train is a little bit different. It's a lot slower. It has a skull on the front and these very noticeable red lights. This is a reference to the end of the movie Sometimes They Come Back by Stephen King, where a ghost train comes and kills the ghost and takes them back to hell. We're hopping out of Verdansk and into multiplayer for just a moment. In the Damnation playlist, the Dom flags are now these creepy scarecrows that just kind of look at you, and if you shoot them and deal 300 damage, they get very, very angry and they will kill you. Now, the reason they put this in there is to kind of keep the game mode spooky, keep it fun, but also if you're, let's say, trying to capture a flag, instead of shooting you, people can just shoot the scarecrow a whole bunch and blow you up, so your flags themselves are dangerous. Now, there's about 1,000 movies out there involving scarecrows, but I think the one that Infinity Ward really had their eye on was Jeepers Creepers. That's a really cool and creepy kind of PG-13 film. Again, it could be based on dozens and dozens of indie or old films about scarecrows, but I'm feeling Jeepers Creepers on this one. After that, something of a bit of an old school reference, there is blood on the floor that will flow up to the ceiling and stick. Some very spooky ghost activity there. Sometimes it glitches out and flows wall to wall. They are all over the map, but I find them most frequently in the subway. And this is a reference to the classic film Nightmare on Elm Street, which is the one with Freddy Krueger, the guy with the hat and claws that slashes people. And this is a very clever effect that was used for the first time in that movie during Glenn's death scene. I think it was Johnny Depp that got killed this way. It was a really horrifying event in the movie where he gets mushed into blood and the blood flows up to the ceiling, and it was an effect that nobody had seen before at the time, so it was very, very shocking. I am almost 100% certain that is what it's supposed to be. If you walk around the map, you'll notice that there are a lot of ghosts popping up in random areas, especially in the graveyard outside of the boneyard. You just saw a specter there. We're going to take a look at that guy in a moment, but there's a lot of these blue ghosts that just kind of pop up in the graveyard. The graveyard is completely filled with them, and that can be any movie. But one thing that's not any movie is these skeleton zombie arms busting out of the ground to come get you when you walk by. That is definitely based on the 1980s classic Return of the Living Dead, something of a horror comedy. Also kind of a depressing film in a lot of ways, but one that's interesting and maybe worth a watch. If you want a closer look at the ghost, instead of going to the graveyard and getting slapped around by zombie hands, you can actually come to the woods here. There's one wandering ghost that spawns on the peak of this hill in the woods outside of Boneyard, and when you get close to her, you will notice that once again, this ghost looks a lot like the ghost from the opening scene of Ghostbusters, the 1984 classic. So I think that they really built quite a few of these ghosts off of Ghostbusters. After that, we have a couple of specters that show up in the map. This one spawns by the parking lot in the southwest corner of the map by the big spire. This one is more of a shadow person almost, and the way they're animated, it kind of reminds me of the old hag and the Hat Man from early internet and creepypasta days. I don't think it's necessarily a movie reference, but it's definitely a well-known supernatural phenomenon, and it kind of looks like shadow people in general. The TVs in the game serve a dual purpose. They play regular static and images of Jigsaw from the movie Saw. So in the movie Saw, Jigsaw would communicate with his victims primarily through the TV, but also in the Steven Spielberg classic Poltergeist, when the TV turned to static mode, evil demon hands would come out of the TV and kidnap little children in horrifying scenes that totally definitely didn't scar me when I was a child and watched this without any sort of parental supervision. And finally today, I want to talk about the Juggord knot. Gourd as in a pumpkin or gourd fruit, because instead of getting a regular Juggernaut in the Onslaught mode, you instead get the Headless Horseman, who is a Juggernaut with no head, but instead has a flaming floating pumpkin for his noggin. This is very clearly a reference to the Headless Horseman, and the movie that's most commonly going to be inspiring this is probably not the Johnny Depp remake, which is really cool, but the original old like Disney Channel classic animated horror fest for children where Ichabod Crane faces off against the Headless Horseman. Almost all of you saw this when you were growing up, and this is exactly where it comes from. Well, that's all for the movie references today. There were a few less this year than other years because Infinity Ward decided to go with a more general spooky theme instead of a more specific one, but the mode itself is still fantastic. It's still very thematic for Halloween. It's fun to be a zombie. It's fun to be a human. You respawn a lot. I think that what they did with the lighting and balance and the dynamic lighting on the map is nothing short of fantastic. I don't have to do the night vision laser goggles mode, and my vision is still good, and it's still spooky and creepy. So I think that this mode is absolutely worth you guys checking out. And if you find any other movie references, please let me know. I might do a follow-up video. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.